Welcome to Ingles con Juan, your trusted companion on the journey to English fluency. This channel exists because we believe that learning English isn't about memorizing every grammar rule or achieving perfection. It's about building the confidence to communicate, the courage to try, and the persistence to keep going even when it feels impossible. Every video on this channel shares real stories from real learners, practical listening practice, and authentic motivation to help you break through your barriers. Today's story is about a moment that changes everything, when fear transforms into confidence in a single conversation. Let's begin. This isn't because Carlos doesn't know English. He studied for 3 years. 3 full years of online classes, grammar exercises, vocabulary apps, and YouTube videos. He can read technical articles. He can write professional emails. He understands podcasts and movies. But he's never had a real conversation with a native English speaker. Not once. The fear of making mistakes, of sounding foolish, of being judged, these fears have kept him silent. Today is the final day of the conference. Carlos tells himself the same thing he's told himself for 3 days. Next time, next conference, when my English is better. He stands up to leave during the afternoon break, ready to return to his hotel room, when something unexpected happens. Someone taps his shoulder, and if you're watching this right now, feeling that same fear Carlos feels, that same voice in your head saying your English isn't good enough yet, hit that like button and subscribe to Ingles con Juan. This story is for you. Let's walk through this together. He's holding a USB drive. Carlos's USB drive. It must have fallen from his bag when he stood up. For a brief moment, Carlos considers just nodding, taking the drive, and walking away. But something stops him. Maybe it's embarrassment at being so obviously avoidant. Maybe it's 3 years of preparation finally demanding to be used. Maybe it's just exhaustion from carrying fear for so long. Carlos takes a breath and responds, "Yes, that's mine. Thank you so much." His voice sounds strange to his own ears. The words came out more naturally than expected. David nods and says, "No problem. Are you enjoying the conference?" Another question, another choice. Carlos could give a short answer, "Yes, it's good," and end the conversation. But instead, he hears himself saying, "Yes, I am." The session this morning about artificial intelligence and customer service was particularly interesting. The speaker from Singapore presented some fascinating case studies. David's face lights up with genuine interest. "I completely agree. The part about predictive algorithms was incredible. Are you working in that field?" And just like that, they're having a conversation. A real conversation. Carlos explains that he works as a software developer in Colombia, specializing in back-end systems for e-commerce platforms. David shares that his startup focuses on integrating AI tools for small businesses. They discuss technical challenges, industry trends, the balance between automation and human touch in customer service. 5 minutes pass. Then 10. Carlos forgets to be nervous. He stumbles over a few words. At one point he says, "I am agree" instead of "I agree." And another time he can't remember the word scalability and has to describe it as the ability to grow the system efficiently. But David never corrects him dismissively. He just nods with understanding, sometimes repeating the correct phrase naturally in his response, allowing Carlos to hear it without feeling corrected. 15 minutes into the conversation, something extraordinary happens in Carlos's mind. He stops translating from Spanish to English before speaking. The words start flowing more directly from thought to speech. He's still making mistakes, he definitely is, but he's communicating, and David is understanding him. They're exchanging ideas, building on each other's points, even laughing at a shared joke about debugging code at 3 in the morning. Carlos takes the business card with trembling hands, but this time the trembling isn't from fear, it's from excitement, from disbelief, from the sudden realization that the conversation he's been avoiding for 3 years just opened a door he never expected. He manages to respond, "I would be very interested in that. Thank you, David. I'll send you an email tomorrow." They shake hands. David walks away toward another group of conference attendees. Carlos stands there, holding the business card, replaying the entire conversation in his mind. 20 minutes. He spoke English for 20 continuous minutes with a native speaker, with a CEO, about technical topics and professional opportunities, and despite his mistakes, despite his accent, despite occasionally searching for words, the communication was successful. More than successful. It was meaningful. Carlos sits back down, but he doesn't open his notebook. Instead, he reflects on what just happened and why it happened. For 3 years, he believed he needed to perfect his English before attempting real conversations. He thought he needed to eliminate his accent, master every idiom, never make grammatical errors. He was waiting for a level of English that doesn't exist, because even native speakers make mistakes, search for words, and communicate imperfectly. The truth he discovers in this moment is profound and liberating. English learning doesn't happen in preparation for real communication. It happens during real communication. Every class, every app, every video was valuable, but they were preparing him for exactly this, the moment when he would actually use English for something that mattered. And now that he's crossed that bridge, he realizes the bridge was never as frightening as he imagined. That evening, Carlos does something he's never done before. He approaches other conference attendees during the closing reception. He introduces himself. He asks questions. He shares his thoughts. Some conversations last 2 minutes, others last 10. Some are easy, some are challenging. He makes mistakes in every single conversation. Wrong verb tenses, forgotten vocabulary, awkward phrasing. But he also successfully exchanges ideas with people from Canada, Australia, India, and the United Kingdom. He discovers that English, in its real-world application, is far more forgiving than textbooks suggest. People want to understand you. They help you find words. They appreciate the effort. Carlos accepts. Over the following months, he participates in weekly team meetings entirely in English. He presents project updates. He collaborates with developers in the United States, designers in London, and project managers in Singapore. His English improves rapidly, not because he's studying more, but because he's using it daily for meaningful purposes. 6 months after that conference encounter, Carlos reflects on his journey. He thinks about the 3 years he spent preparing, always feeling not ready, always postponing real conversations. He thinks about that single moment when David tapped his shoulder and asked a simple question. And he realizes something crucial that he now wants every English learner to understand. The breakthrough you're waiting for won't arrive when your English becomes perfect. The breakthrough happens when you decide to use your imperfect English anyway. Every person who speaks English fluently today, including native speakers, went through countless awkward conversations, embarrassing mistakes, and moments of feeling incompetent. The difference between people who achieve fluency and people who remain perpetually preparing isn't talent or perfect grammar. It's courage. Carlos still makes mistakes in English. His accent is distinctly Colombian. Sometimes he has to ask people to repeat themselves. Sometimes he needs a moment to find the right word. But none of that matters anymore because he's communicating effectively, building professional relationships, and advancing his career. His English isn't perfect, but it's functional. And functional English creates opportunities that perfect English, existing only in imagination, never can. The most important lesson Carlos learned isn't about grammar rules or vocabulary lists. It's about mindset. For 3 years, he saw English conversations as tests he might fail. Now he sees them as opportunities he might gain something from. That shift in perspective changed everything. Here's what you need to know. Your English right now, today, with all its imperfections, is enough to start having real conversations. Not perfect conversations, real ones. The person on the other side of that conversation doesn't need perfection. They need communication. And you're capable of that right now. The opportunity that will change your English journey won't arrive when you finally feel ready. It will arrive in ordinary moments. A question from a stranger, a work situation requiring English, a chance encounter at a conference. And in that moment, you have a choice. Respond with your imperfect English, or stay silent waiting for perfection that never comes. Carlos chose to respond. That single choice led to a 20-minute conversation. That conversation led to a job opportunity. That opportunity led to daily English practice. That practice led to genuine fluency. But it all started with one decision to speak, despite the fear. If this story inspired you, if it gave you the courage to try, please hit that like button. Subscribe to Ingles con Juan for more real stories that motivate, authentic listening practice that prepares you, and practical lessons that work. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. Your English journey is waiting for you to take the first step. Not the perfect step, the brave step, the real step. Stop preparing to speak English and start speaking English while preparing. That's where the transformation happens. Thank you for watching. Your breakthrough moment is closer than you think. See you in the next video.